Well, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for Fashion Hour. My name is Nina Means. I'm the director for the Fashion Incubator here at ACC. Fashion Hour is something that we do once a month. So this one's our first one for the year. And we are doing this once a month throughout the year to be able to highlight different parts of our industry, different parts of our business. A lot of times people look at fashion and they're like, oh, let's look at all the fashion shows, and we love a good fashion show, don't get me wrong. But what we really want to look at are all the different facets of our industry that make it go. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and so we're going to talk to you throughout the year with different parts of our industry. So from legal, from marketing to design, we'll get a chance to kind of cover a wide range of different topics. These are free and open to the public, and so we're always happy to have people come join us for 1 hour on a Friday. And also at the end, you get a chance to talk with our guest. So definitely as you're listening, feel free to kind of pull together any questions you might have. We will open up for Q&A toward the end. So without any further ado, I want to kind of introduce our guest here. This is a fireside chat. Fireside chat just meaning very casual, laid-back conversation with a friend, Julio Viniegra. Julio and I met not too long ago, well, about a year ago now, 2 years ago now, and really has kind of shown himself to be an incredible asset to our local industry, as well as an incredible background, having worked with Carolina Herrera brands, Nina Ricci, Paco Rabanne, and so we're going to kind of dig into some of that background here and learn a little bit more about you and about the business, and how we might think about applying that for local emerging designers here, as well as students. So without any further ado, Julio Viniegra. So have a little round of applause for our guests. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure, and it's an honor to be sitting down next to you. So hopefully I can share some of my background with you guys today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's just kind of jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about how did you get into the fashion industry? How did you get here?
Destiny.
Testing.
It's kind of funny because if I yell too much, I'm sorry, just let me know, because when I have a micro in my hands, I tend to start singing. So,
well, we'll have the karaoke edition next time.
I'm an attorney, although I don't work as an attorney anymore, but I took my law degree in Spain and then I LLM in Texas, went back to Spain, started working in a law firm, international law firm, and after a year working 60 hours, 70 hours a week, I was like, I need a change. I used to escape from the back, like when you're a teenager at home making no noise, just trying to catch the last train. And one Sunday I was looking at the newspaper, the real newspaper.
Right, the one with paper, yes. We were opening it up like this. Uh-huh.
And I saw, an ad that says, lawyer needed. I'm like, okay. Company in the chemical industry. I was like,
chemical industry.
Yeah. And trademarks and patent knowledge, sure. And English and French. English, well, I just came from Texas, so my English was okay, and my French was oui. So it was after the first interview that I realized that it was not a chemical industry company. It was a beauty and fashion.
Wow.
They just wanted to put it like that. And after 3 interviews, just got the job and entered into the beauty and fashion industry.
So tell us, who is that fateful company that you actually started working for?
Puig
Puig
Beauty and Fashion Group, Puig Group. It's a family-owned business. It's a 106 years old family-owned business. Today, I think it's going to be somewhere there. Today, I think it's over $2 billion in revenues. Still a 100% family-owned business.
Oh my goodness.
Not my family.
No. We were like, do they adopt?
No. They used to tell me, Julio, you're like family. Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't see the dividends at the end of the year. And it started growing and growing. Kind of like European style. Companies grow little by little. Things have changed over the last 20 years, but things like that. And they were more focused on the perfume industry and cosmetics than anything like that.
Okay.
In some way, the fashion came along because, we didn't want the fashion dye and affect the perfume business. So it was kind of like a natural entry into the fashion industry by purchasing Carolina Herrera, Paco Rabanne, Nina Ricci, and lately Jean-Paul Gaultier, and things by Noten and some others.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because a lot of brands are kind of going into that fragrance accessories route, kind of an entry, right, into the brand. We could possibly get a Chanel, fragrance, or maybe a, Prada, fragrance. But then, when it's time to, thousands of dollars it may take to purchase a garment, that may not be the first time you interact with the brand. So yeah, it makes sense that you would have some of these like entry points to kind of grow the business.
Yeah, a perfume, as I always say, perfumes is a luxury, it's an affordable luxury, because at the end of the day, Carolina Herrera, $5,000, or Chanel, $5,000 skirt. Not many people might be willing to spend $5,000 on a skirt.
Right.
But $100 in a Chanel numéro 5 or something like that,
Right.
So it's an affordable luxury, and it's a good way of making money also for fashion houses.
Absolutely.
We can talk about it later.
Oh yeah, I would love to kind of dig into that a little bit later. So this is Pooch and kind of some of their financial results from 2018. Could you kind of highlight the underscore there? What was it? It's their revenues are reaching.
It was 1.9 million euros.
Wow.
Which means $2 billion, a little more.
Wow.
$2 billion last year. I haven't been with them for a few years already, but I always follow up with them. And I was there for 16 years, so it's a long time.
16
it's
is a long
big
time.
of my career.
Absolutely.
So it was great. Also the fact that it was a family business allowed me to do things that in a public company you won't be able to do.
Sure.
Because you're kind of like, you're a lawyer, you're a sales, you're marketing.
Right, the silos.
And there they allow me to, from chief counsel to chief audit to CEO of one of the units, and so I'm always going to be grateful to them, because they allow me to grow as a professional.
That's exciting. So tell me a little bit about, I think one of the things that we like to try to do is to kind of highlight the differences of whenever you're working with a public company versus a privately owned company versus a small business, sometimes your experience as an employee can be drastically different. So whenever you were kind of creating a bit more fluidity in your experience for over those 16 years, how did those changes normally come about, and did you have to kind of like repackage yourself for those opportunities, or were you just kind of tapped because you were doing well in one area? How did that happen?
Well, I have not worked in a public multinational company, so I would not say I have many friends. I would say that it's more impersonal in the sense that numbers and performance are more essential than people. In a family business, even if it's a small or large business, still the people factor, the person that is behind the title is essential and is important. But I work also in a multinational family business, and so when I opened my own business that had nothing to do with fashion, I had to also readapt to smaller things, like advertising and promotion and publicity, So when I was, for instance, the CEO in Puerto Rico, I had $1 million to spend in advertising and promotion every year. That's awesome.
Wow.
When you got your own business and you have $1,000, it's like, okay.
It's a little different.
I wouldn't do a party. No, that's not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
Everyone's drinking water.
So we were saying before, be water, my friend. You need to adapt.
Yes, be water. Yeah,
You
adaptable.
need to adapt. You
yes,
need to adapt
absolutely.
to wherever you are. If it's a small business, a large business, you need to adapt. You can adapt to anything.
Yeah.
Everything.
No, that's so interesting.
Sure.
So really, my main takeaway in that is, it's really about that personal connection, especially in those privately owned businesses or small business, and then being able to kind of move from kind of different economies of scale, we'll call it, whenever you've got, a huge budget from a company that's pulling in this kind of revenue versus, whenever you're an emerging business, and your marketing dollars are a little bit tighter. So I did want to kind of ask you a little bit more about some of the maybe some of the most exciting opportunities that you had kind of working with some of these brands. Like, you know, I remember you told me about moving all of those Paco Rabanne gowns to Puerto Rico for a photo shoot. Can you tell us a little, like, how did that happen? The logistics around that were pretty crazy, but, you know, but the final product sounded like it was worth it.
Well, you know, there are many things that I did that you know, thanks to this, I have to remember part of my past, and that's always good. And one of the things was that while I was in Puerto Rico, we were more focused on perfumes and cosmetics than fashion, but I still wanted the fashion to be involved in some way. So there was a couple of highlights at that time. The first one was to bring some of the original Paco Rabanne dresses that I think they're going to be somewhere there in the presentation to Puerto Rico and do a private trunk show. I think that's probably the next slide. These three.
Beautiful.
Paco Rabanne is known, you know, especially for the metallic dresses. Those dresses are heavy, real-time heavy, and I feel bad for the top models that I had to wear it at the time, but the beautiful dresses, they're originals, and it cost a fortune to bring them and assure them all the way from Paris to Puerto Rico, but it was worth it. It was worth it, the money spent, and that. Another thing that we did that it was also interesting, it was during the Fashion Week in Puerto Rico, we created, my product manager had an idea, I stole it because I'm the boss. And, sorry, Niabel. And she had a great idea, smart girl, and creating a contest with the nouvelle, the new fashion designers that they were presenting for the first time during Fashion Week. And we presented them a new perfume that we were launching, and we said, you need to create one piece of cloth representing this perfume.
Oh, wow.
This is the aroma, this is the perfume, this is the notes, this is this. And we had it, and we had a winner during the Fashion Week and all that, which was awesome. And the fashion designer was sent to New York to meet Carolina Herrera in person, all that. So there's always ways of creating things that makes it beauty and fashion.
Absolutely. I love the combination of kind of bringing in kind of that competition element, you know, but then also kind of taking something that you wouldn't ordinarily think about, kind of designing around a fragrance, you know, but this happens pretty frequently kind of in these luxury houses, right? Like, you know, you're wanting to kind of evoke the same mood of the brand, and I know you're really, you know, key on, you know, the kind of the branding strategies and some of those things, but, and I'd love to kind of dig into that a little bit with you here, but what I find really fascinating is that a lot of times we don't really think about how the product is connecting to us in a sensory way, you know, like, you know, everything about the brand, you know, signals that you're a part of something that's a little bit more elevated, right? You know, there's the, you know, the expense that, you know, the bottle, you know, and how it looks, and then, you know, the appearance of the garment, and then where you find yourself, they ship to Puerto Rico, you know, some beautiful place, right? So tell me a little bit more about like brand development and how you guys, you know, have kind of protected these luxury houses as they grow into different products.
I would say that it's not only just luxury houses.
Okay.
You know, any of you that has a brand, it needs to be protected. Okay. I know you might think, well, I'm still tiny. You know, I'm not famous or anything like that. Doesn't matter. The brand can go on. You need to protect it. There are many ways of protecting a brand.
What are some of the best ways for people to
protect
their
brand?
brand?
First of all, you need to protect it in the United States, you know, as a trademark. And it's true that the United States, I haven't worked as an attorney for a while, you know, and so I'm sorry if there's anybody, an attorney here listening to me, but...
so we're not giving legal advice.
No, I'm not giving legal advice. But in the States, you can prove the use of the brand and that you're going to be protected. Okay. But you have it registered in the USPTO, the trademark office is better. But there are many other things that you need to take into consideration with the brand. You know, when you sign contracts, you know, and somebody's going to help you with the brand or the assignment. I mean, this is your brand, so you need to make sure that, you know, people that is helping you understand that the brand cannot be replicated without your permission. That the brand has these colors and these brand guidelines and all that. When you start licensing, hopefully in the future, also it's very important that you have a clear
picture of where you want to be with your brand, you know. It's good the money that you make with the licenses, for instance, but what cost to your brand, you know, so, and
That's
we
a
have
really interesting
examples of
thought.
brands that they just went down.
As
because
soon
of
as they
that.
licensed.
Yeah.
So just so that we can kind of unpack licensing for the audience, we'll talk about a variety of different business models. Like whenever people create their brand, sometimes they intend to own it themselves forever, right? And then others are looking for ways to exit, you know, either permanently or in part. And then, you know, and then there's this licensing opportunity that happens for some brands, right? Where that's kind of a, you know, selling off a piece of the label. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I'm trying to kind of give us a little bit of a scaffold around it, but can you kind of unpack the licensing and what does that mean for a brand?
Well, I think at the end, Puig is a good example of the licensing process, you know. This is a perfume and cosmetic company that saw the opportunity of selling perfumes for fashion houses. And they were the experts. They're one of the, you know, top experts in the world in manufacturing and commercializing perfumes. So that's why, for instance, Prada signed an agreement with Puig while I was there. It was a difficult contract. So it is a way of getting your brand in products that otherwise you won't be able to, because you are really focusing on the fashion and the clothing. I mean, who are you to know what a perfume looks like and what is the trends and the, you know, the notes of the perfume, and or in some other products, you know. So it is a good way of making money. It's just that, again, it's like, I would say it's like when you leave your kids in school for the first time, because you know you cannot educate them in every single subject.
Right.
But now they're open to other ideas and other people and relationships, and you know, so you want to make sure that education is the one that you want. So that's why you choose the school, and you know, so in some ways
That's
like
a really
this,
good
you know,
analogy. I like
kind
that.
of like let it go, but hey,
Right.
there's
I have a little one, so I'm definitely, I can relate to that. You're like, well, wait, what did you tell my kid? You know, so no, that makes a lot of sense. So your collection is kind of like your, you know, your initial family, your product group. But if you really want to expand them and help them go further, sometimes you've got to let go of a piece of it to someone who's maybe more expert, you know, has more expertise in a different area. So that makes a lot of sense. So do people typically, is that something that people are doing a lot of across the board in terms of licensing, or is it something that just happens from time to time? Is that a common?
I think in the luxury market for sure is happening, and again, fashion houses, especially luxury fashion houses, don't make much money. Let's be honest. It's an expensive business. It's an expensive business. The thing is that you need to see it as a global picture. I might not make as much money in this division, but other divisions are making enough money to compensate that. And the fashion gives me the show, the business, the branding that I need for my brands.
Right.
So, and you have many examples, you know, and probably Chanel was one of the ones that really was making money all the time with the fashion.
Wow.
But it's an iconic brand that I think you can never find a Chanel bag or anything like that in those weird places that you can find some other luxury brands as well.
Okay, yeah.
And when you start selling the things that you're not selling or you don't want anymore, or you can find,
Kind of the off-price
say
places.
names.
We won't say any
Retailers and
names.
like that, but you can find them. Chanel, I don't think you're gonna find them because they've been always very picky and very protective of their brand. And that's why still Chanel is considered one of the top brands in luxury perception, okay, and pricing. But you know, but at the same time, and it's something that we've discussed many times, this is a business, okay? So you need to make money with the business. If you don't make money with the business, you don't have a business, okay? And finding that balance between the business and the creation, it is essential. And one of these balances is maybe find some license that allows you to collect some royalties that you can put into your main core, which is the fashion design.
I think that's a good follow-on. So, like, in terms of like where people are actually making money on the license, so they're selling it for a sum. Well, maybe I need to ask you, instead of me filling it in, how does the license normally work? What happens there?
again,
I mean,
no legal
in broad
advice.
strokes, we're not
Um,
saying it in absolutes, right? So it could be someone else. We can do kind of a illustration.
Usually it's going to be a percentage of sales. First issue is to discuss the concept of sales. You have lawyers in the US, it will be a nightmare because they will start going, sales are defined as this, but this, not this, including this, but not limited to this, and this, notwithstanding the above. And at the end of the clause, you didn't understand anything that they were saying, instead of saying just half an orange,
Okay.
But once defined those things, usually it's a percentage of the gross sales that you have.
Okay.
The percentage tends to go down if the sales goes up. You tend to establish a minimum sales in many cases, just to assure that you're going to have some minimum royalties coming into your business. And yeah, I would say that that's the usual way, some brackets with percentage on gross sales, on net sales.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So basically you're saying as your volume increases or your sales numbers increase, that typically the percentage of what your royalty is could typically start to go down slightly, right? So then you kind of almost like our tax brackets, we've got like, okay, well, if you make this much, you get this percentage. If you make this much, you get that percentage. So similarly in the license space, we would be looking at something similar, right? Okay, well, that's really helpful. So in terms of brand protection, I kind of want to go back to that because I think that for a lot of, I think for emerging designers, sometimes we feel like, okay, how long is it going to take me to build my brand to be, for anyone to be interested in licensing what I do? Is it about longevity? Is it about sales? Is it about, what's the defining factor that makes someone want to license?
That's a tough one.
Okay, well,
that's a tough one.
Maybe some characteristics that would make you desirable.
I mean, as soon as anybody calls you and wants to license your brand, because you're successful. This is like counterfeiting, which is another way, by the way, there's another thing that you need to think in the future, become really famous with your brand. Nobody copies Julio's accessories. They copy Louis Vuitton and Chanel and all that because that's what makes money, So somebody's calling you wanting to license, and get a license with your brand is because you're doing something good, But again, I wouldn't start focusing on the licensing until you don't have created that brand recognition, and the brand recognition comes with time. Today, with social media, success is faster than before. So it's easier to see brands that have crossed the Atlantic much faster than 15, 20 years ago. But what is that line exactly? What's the point? I mean, it's difficult to say.
No, it makes sense because every business is going to have a slightly different model, and that je ne sais quoi, or that kind of it factor that kind of says like, okay, this is the one, right? Or does it have longevity? I think that's another thing too. I see a lot of iconic brands going into licensing more so than some of these new labels, right? I mean, because there's a heritage or kind of a tested time,
I would say I have two examples probably from that. I think one was Pierre Cardin. He started licensing to everything and everybody, and there was no good control on what they were doing, and the brand just went from here to there, Another example with us, Carolina Herrera,
I think I did have a Carolina Herrera slide in there.
Yeah,
Let me go back.
This
one?
Well,
That's
this is their normal resort 2020. But
do you want me to? Is there something further?
We created a second brand. It was called, I think in the beginning, it was called CH by Carolina Herrera.
Oh, I know exactly which one you're
and
talking about. I'll go back to it.
You can see the, that's.
We'll
her.
start there.
That's her, and you can see, we realized that Carolina Herrera in New York was, high end. It's going to be always high end. She's such a, classy, elegant woman, and with the store in Madison Avenue and all that. But then we decided to sign a license agreement for a second line CH by Carolina Herrera, which price is much more affordable. Talking about, I think purses were between $1,000, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and open stores. And we didn't do it ourselves. Why? Because we are not retailers. We were not, Butch are not retailers.
Okay.
So we found the right people that could manufacture this new line
Mm-hmm.
and open these stores around the world.
Got
And
it.
right now we have, I think there's one in Houston, there's one in Manhasset, New York, and there's like 40 or 50 around the world.
That's wonderful.
And we get the royalties out of that.
I
you know.
see.
So there has to be, of course, there's a connection between our creative directors and the brand that is exploiting this license, just to make sure that the brand guidelines are
Mhm.
followed, that there's nothing weird and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a license. So we used to be only licensees, and then we became licensors as well. You know, which it wasn't interesting, but it's because we've got into the fashion business that
Right.
forced us in some way to start looking on the other side. Yeah.
Okay, so just to, that's an awesome side-by-side with Pierre Cardin and then Carolina Herrera. So the CH brand seems like it was much more successful in the licensing space than the Pierre Cardin that did not manage the brand well as it expanded. So whenever you talk about licensee versus licensor, the licensee side is, which side again?
I am asking you to allow me to manufacture and commercialize your product
Right.
with your brand.
And then-
as I'm licensor, I'm giving you the power to manufacture and commercialize your products under my brand.
Great, and then the licensor side is the...
That's the licensor.
Yeah, perfect, awesome, got it, yeah. So we have both sides of the story. So no, that's really helpful, because I think that even as, you know, whether you're working for another label or understanding where you are kind of in the business, or even knowing like how you're even stacking up as an emerging talent against businesses that are like, well, this is, you know, are you a competitor for the licensed business, or are you a competitor for the luxury business? You know, maybe or maybe not, but I think just understanding where in the strata, even for price point or what have you, like why those things were created and where those things sit. But I think to your point earlier, you're right, like we really have to kind of start kind of at the basics whenever we're talking emerging talent, right? We really have to build a brand. So I do want to talk a little bit about that. Can you give us a little bit of, you know, what are those defining pieces for emerging businesses or for students, you know, that are looking to create a label? Like, what are those brand things that they need to really lean into? Or what things do you look for whenever you're helping businesses for brand?
Well, I would not give advice on the design per se, not that creative. But I would talk about business.
Yes, from the business
And-
side.
and-
That, just to be
and
clear, from the business side.
You know, and I've seen it many times, not only in the fashion, but in the fashion a lot more, because he has this artistic, creative element, you know. And I'm going to give an example that I think I explained to you a few years ago when I was living in Paris. We had signed a new creative director, no names, no brands, and after the collection, the show in Paris, we had the sales. We started the sales the day after. You know, you have your retailers or your distributors all over the world sitting down with the sales team. They start showing them all the pieces. They can ask questions, and they start ordering. And it was a fiasco. It was a disaster.
Oh, no.
It was a disaster.
Why?
I didn't like it.
You're like, it was awful. No, but like, what happened?
But you know, the thing is that the important there is that we were in an executive committee, and it was the CEO, and it was the creative director, the sales director, it was me, the license director. We had a license director, and we were talking about that. And this creative director that just signed a few months before just stood up and said, "This is not my fault. This is salespeople. They didn't know how to sell my beautiful clothing, which should be in a museum." And so that's it. And you know, usually I would not give an opinion on those committees, but it was so, you know, that I had to. So
You
I
had
said-
to say
so I said,
something.
"Listen, you know, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to say if it was great collection, bad collection. I'm not going to say that. Maybe the salespeople didn't do a perfect job, you know. But come on, you know, there has to be something more than that, you know.
Yes.
You didn't connect to the consumer, and instead of the customer, in this case, the agents, distributors, and retailers that you were supposed to convince. Sorry to tell you, you messed up. And I'm not saying that your collection is good or bad. I'm not even going to that.
Right.
And the thing is that if you want to sell, I mean, you need to have a product that can be sellable. And with that, I'm not saying, oh, well, then I'm going to do commercial fashion. I'm not saying that. It's just like everything else in life, it's balance. You need to find the balance between the art that is in the creation, which it is, and you can see the beautiful things that Paco Rabanne did, Karina Herrera and that, and the consumer and the customer. What do they need? What do they want? And if you don't, you know, walk that water, I mean, you're not going to sell. And if you don't sell, sorry,
Yeah.
no business.
True.
It is clear, you know. So how do you know, find that? And it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's
Oh,
easy,
of course,
you know,
of course.
but some people, and when I heard him saying that, no, my clothes should be in a museum. Which museum?
Oh no.
But you know, it's the thing, you know,
Yeah,
and it's
it
fun.
happens,
You just
it
want to
happens.
be in habit and
Yeah.
in exposition in a museum. You could, you know. I mean, it's art. You know?
It is
I mean,
art.
it's art.
It is art.
So, like everything else in life with artists, and we have some discussions about artists.
It's hard.
How do you measure that? You know?
And true.
You want to live? You want to do business or not? You want to make a living out of this or not? If
Right.
you don't want to make a living, that's fine. You know, it's fine. We're not saying that you have to. That's fine. But then don't call yourself a fashion business or anything like that, because you're not. You know?
You're, right, because now you're holding so tightly to the creative side that you're not listening to the customer. You're not listening to what actually sells.
And you have to think also about, many other elements. The cost of the product. How much is costing to do this jacket? If I have to spend on the fabric and this and the buttons and this and this and that and that and the labor and all that, how much is it costing me? $500. Okay. If I need to pay now the distributor and then the retailer and that means that I have to sell this jacket for $1,500. Okay. Can I compete with the market at $1,500 this jacket? Well, if you're Chanel, yeah. But if you're not, then you're not going to be able to sell it. So what do we do? Well, we need to think about what kind of fabric we're going to use.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying to use cheap fabric or anything like that, but you need to start thinking about how much it's going to cost me each piece.
Right.
Money. Some piece I might make some more money than other pieces, but if you're not making money in any other pieces, then you have a problem.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Margins, gross margin, those things that are like, oh, numbers.
I know.
I don't want a number. Well, hire someone. I don't, hire someone that helps you with the numbers.
Right.
But you need to know how much it's costing you.
Absolutely.
And are you competitive from a price positioning? Not only just branding,
Right.
price positioning.
Yes.
Otherwise, and I saw it there. I saw it with us. The first analysis that I did one of the fashion houses, I realized that, the studio was. That's this, the most expensive this, and that, this. So suddenly the cost of the product was so high that we had to be at Chanel level, and we were not Chanel level,
Right.
which in this case was in a process of reorganizing and
Yes.
and relaunching the brand on that. You could not be at that level, so it is essential. It's fun, but if it's a business, you need to treat it as a business.
Absolutely.
Gross margins, profits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you kind of underlining all of those things, because those all feed into the brand identity, right? I mean, what are you known for in terms of your fabrics and your finishing, and what can you afford at the price point that your customer wants to buy you at? So all of those things, you're absolutely right. And then having to think about, as a designer myself, I understand sometimes we get so close to the product. We love every piece that comes off of our, oh, this is the best idea I've had. No, this is the best idea I've ever had. So I definitely empathize with that poor creative director. But you have to sell the product, right?
Again, please don't misunderstand. I'm not
No,
saying that.
no, I don't
I'm saying
misunderstand
that
at all.
you have to, kill all your artistic,
No.
spirit. No, absolutely not. And that's why Paco Rabanne became and iconic because he was using metal to create those things.
It's
you know?
amazing. I kind of want to go back and see some of those
you
Paco
see
Rabanne pieces.
all
Is this him building it?
Yep, all this is metal.
Oh, wow.
For those ones that you don't know, Paco Rabanne is from Spain. It's me. He changed his name because it sounded more French, Paco Rabanne, but his real name is Francisco Rabaneda Cuervo. Okay, Francisco Rabaneda Cuervo.
Amazing, yeah. And so Paco, but we know him as Paco Rabanne.
Yeah, Paco Rabanne, and you know, I think that one of the highlights of my career in the fashion was to meet him. You know, and at that time when I was living in Paris, we started the process of he retiring little by little. So I was in charge of doing the process smoothly with him. So I spent many hours with him in his office. I even went to his house. It's funny because he's such a creative genius with all these weird things that make him so special.
Wow.
But at the same time, it is, you know, still alive. Such an approachable guy, and he would tell me and show me his, blueprints of the new house he's building in Bretagne, and talk about that. And indeed, I think I showed Michelle. I have a note. My oldest daughter was born in Paris, and I have a note signed by Paco Rabanne, handwriting saying, "Great news. I just hope that the fairies." Makes your daughter happy all her life or something.
Oh, that's amazing.
You know, and that's those little things that make him a
That's
special
amazing.
Guy, you know?
That the fact that he would take time to write a note, but that you have a note from Paco Rabanne blessing you on your first child is amazing.
He could have been,
That's so cool.
just a diva and things like that.
Yeah.
But he is a very approachable guy. You know, and,
That's amazing.
And again, you know, so he started working with this metal. Nobody was working with metal at that time, and still today. You know, and that made him iconic. You know?
Right.
Would have he been successful in the future? I don't know. You know, it's just he needed help, and he realized that he needed help, and that's why he signed first the license for the perfumes, and then later he realized that he needed help also to manage the fashion business.
Right.
And we also got into the fashion business as well.
That's excellent.
So sometimes, I mean, you cannot know everything.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So just get people. You know, surround yourself with people that can help you in the areas that you're not strong. That's it.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And I think that definitely takes the pressure off of creatives, right? Like you want to be able to create a strong brand and a viable business, but you know, you don't have to do it by yourself. You know, you really should be looking to other people who have expertise in other areas to kind of balance out your skills. So, you know, building a strong team, you know, around, you know, first it's like kind of some self-awareness, right? I mean, for Paco Rabanne to say, you know what, I need some other folks, it's a pretty big deal. So, so really like looking at how do we create those teams around us. And you know, have you seen like any partnerships go well or awry that had certain characteristics? This is kind of off script, so I was like on this topic because I think that this is important as you're starting a business. You know, kind of building partnerships and you know people that you would kind of identify. As who would you work with, or how would you advise someone to find someone to work with? I know.
That's a tough one. Just asking me many questions.
Yeah, there's a
partnerships are all complicated. Okay, you're gonna hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, but a partnership is like marriage," you know, and I'm like, no. You know?
It's not like
theoretically in a marriage, in a coupleship, whatever you call it, there is love, you know, and love can overcome a lot of things. In a partnership, there's no love unless you are doing it with your partner, your wife, or your husband, which I would not recommend. But there's no love. It's respect and tolerance and all that. But so partners are complicated, you know. And you're gonna mess up. Absolutely. I had a couple of businesses and I messed up in both cases with my partner, or he messed up with me, I don't know, whatever it was. But the reality is it's complicated. But there's this African proverb that says, no, you go alone, you go faster, you go together, you go farther.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And that's a reality. You know, I think you need people. That said, I'm not, when I said that you need a team and all that, that doesn't mean it has to be partners. Sometimes it can be people that you pay, you know, and services, you know, and you hire them or, as an employees or as consultants or as advisors, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be partners. Sometimes you
That's a
need
good
partners
point.
because you need money,
Right.
and But in that case, I mean, my only advice would be follow your instinct.
Yeah.
You messed up, yeah. Sometimes,
Mhm.
80% of the time you'll be okay.
Mhm.
20% of the times you
Right.
made a mistake and
Yeah.
you change.
No, you're right. There is a gut space too,
Yeah.
where you have to kind of follow your intuition.
Yep.
But then there's also, I appreciate what you said though about kind of, your partnerships don't have to be contractual partnerships. They can be, vendors or team members or advisors that you bring on that are kind of helping kind of build out your space. So what I try to do is, like, even though we're talking about enterprise today and luxury fashion and these larger companies, I also really want to make sure that we also connect it to our entrepreneur space, because a lot of times whenever we're creating business, we want to be able to find ways to, like, okay, well, but what can I translate to what I'm doing now? What am I seeing in terms of, like, where I am? And so I think this kind of idea of building your team through advisors, building your team through, contractors and vendors, and kind of filling out your team that way is also a really great way of that. So thank you for that. We've got a few more minutes here. I think I'm going to ask you one more question regarding students, but we'll open it up for question and answer in just a little bit. So if you guys have got some thoughts, definitely want to get your questions. So kind of switching gears more towards students, like, if students are, like, really wanting to kind of get into this business or this industry, like, what are some of the qualities that you feel like they should have, or, like, what kinds of things that how can they prepare themselves to kind of be a part of this world?
Well, I mean, besides hopefully being creative, just educate yourself on the business side. When I said that you need a team and all that, I mean it. Not because I offer those services, but just because everybody needs teams. But that doesn't mean that you are gonna say, I don't know, I hire Julio and just taking care of everything else. I have no idea about what's going on with the cost of the product and the margin. Big mistake. So educate yourself on the business part, on the numbers part. You don't have to become a finance director. I'm not telling you to do that. You don't have to become a license director or anything like that. But educate yourself. Find the way to understand basic principles of product cost and margins and nets and distributorship and licensing and what it means and what it's not mean, etc. Which should be part of the process in getting into this business. In some cases I've seen people like, I don't want to know anything about this. That's my partner who does it. I think that's probably the biggest mistakes I've seen many times. But that's not creative. Well, accounting can be really creative. You can ask some of the largest companies how creative they are with accounting. So it's not a question of creating or not. It's a question that, again, you want to have a business, or you want to have a hobby. You want to have a hobby, they'll let you probably use the machines here and all that. But you want to have a business.
We're focused on business
here too.
Business,
you see, because it is business. I mean, just focus on business, both sides of the business, not just the creative part, not just the design and the brand, but also how am I reaching the market? What are my strategy, go-to-market strategy? How is am I going to go directly? I'm going to sell online. I'm going to use direct retailers. I want to use distributors. I want to be only in the United States. I want to attack the Latin American market. Start also thinking about all those things.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And one of the things as you were highlighting that for me, you kind of mentioned, like, if I worked with Julio, do people work with you here locally? What kind of work are you doing now? And are there people who, how can designers or businesses engage with you?
Well, within the fashion right now, I only have a couple of clients. One, from Mexico.
Oh, right.
Finally, we're getting to that point.
Excellent.
It's in the sustainable fashion clothing, which I'm very interested in for the future to come. And then I'm partnership with an Italian digital marketing agency that is manage the online stores for many fashion houses in Italy and in Europe in general, and they are opening here. They have Chiaraboni here, and now we're dealing with new clients here.
Great.
So online sales, which is also the future, of course, of fashion. We could be talking about
That's
fashion,
a whole other.
fashion and online sales and all that.
Absolutely.
It's
That's
another
huge.
thing because it's a huge thing. You know?
Mhm.
But so those are the major things that I have right now in fashion. And with art, we have some other issues with Lou and Co. And
Oh,
trying to
nice.
get that's for me is fashion as well. You know. So
Yeah, absolutely.
those are the things that I'm working right now on. That,
Okay,
you know.
that's great. So we'll get a chance to do a little bit of question and answer now. We've got a few minutes left, and then at the end, if you guys have any additional questions for Julio, he'll be able to stick around just for a few minutes. But we'll go ahead and open it up to the audience for questions. And we'll have a microphone coming around. Thank you, Skylar.
One very basic question. What makes luxury fashion luxury?
That's a good one.
Price. That's really that's another far side. Chat.
Yeah, yes, it is.
I think I heard someone said that, you know, luxury is not a dress because it's not luxury because it can only be bought or is attacking only a specific tiny population on the top when you need to spend, you know, that kind of money in a luxury car and luxury clothing and a house and all that, but making the other ones in the middle wanting to be there, you know, and that's what makes it luxury because you're attacking such a huge amount of people that aspires to get that. And then we get into capitalism and now with election and all that. I don't want to get into that, but yeah, that's a tough one. Huh? I think the brands have, you know, I think price at the end of the day. Some people say it's just price. No, I would say it's experience as well. Especially today, people is looking more for experience than just pure buying things. 15 years ago, when I was living in Paris, I used to walk by Champs-Élysées to get to my office.
Yes.
And this is the flagship store of Louis Vuitton there. And I used to pass around 8:50 in the morning. And I think the store will open at 10. And it was every single day, those 4 years there was a huge line of Japanese waiting there until 10 a.m. because they
Wow.
were opening. Okay?
A line.
Yeah, and
Why were they lined up?
because as soon as they opened the stores, they wanted to buy because they, you know, inventory, it didn't matter what. And indeed, they were not allowed to buy more than 2 pieces. So they would offer me money to go in and buy something for them.
Oh, wow.
No, wait, thank you. But, you know, it's luxury because what people wanted to. So people would come just to Paris to be an hour at least in line to get a purse from Louis Vuitton. I suppose that's luxury. I don't know. I would call it something else, but you create that desire to have that, and in some way, and it's a mix of things. But I think the other part, I like more the thing of that, you know, that all these people here wanting to, you know, aspire.
1%. Yes, exactly.
I think so.
The aspirational nature of it. Absolutely. It's a good question. Do you have any other questions? We have one up here up front. Skylar's coming around with the mic.
So you mentioned a house, a business managing the creation of perfumes for major fashion houses in the same house for competitors amongst themselves. So how do you manage that process and keep the integrity of what you're making to each and every one of them?
That's a great question.
And that, yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And you have it not only in Puig, you have it with LVMH or Procter & Gamble. They have different brands that they're competing against each other. Of course, you create different divisions for that. In our case, back then, we had Carolina Herrera as a separate entity. We have Paco Rabanne Fashion House as a separate entity, and the the fashion house and Nina Ricci as a separate entity, while the perfumes work together. So within that, then you have teams, product managers for each of the brands, that they, yeah, of course they compete against each other. You know, just think that, for instance, one of the Paco Rabanne perfumes won 1 million, it was called. I think he sold first year $150 million in perfumes all over the world.
150 million.
150. So we're talking about big money here. So of course the competition is, it was, you know, it's hard between the teams because everybody wants to be successful with their perfumes or their products or the design, you know. And at the end you have a executive committee that, you know, oversees everything, and the idea is to make a sum of 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 to $2 billion, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's internal competition, absolutely. You need to treat it like if it's a different company. Otherwise, then you're cannibalizing yourself, and that's not interesting, you know. And sometimes the people on the top need to make some, you know, preference and say, well, we're going to put more money into this because this, you know, product launch has been more successful, so let's add more advertising here, and this launch of the other brand has not been that successful, so let's shrink. You know, and that's part of the process on top management.
Julio, you mentioned that you're working with a fashion house that's doing sustainable clothing. Do you find yourself having an opinion about where sustainability should fit into a fashion business model these days, and kind of looking into the future where the global issue of sustainability is becoming stronger?
Well, I mean, the reality is that the world is changing. It has changed, and all the fashion houses are starting this process. Of course, the big fashion houses and there are elephants, you know, things that move as fast as you would do in a small business. But it's clear that at least in Europe, United States, in some Asian countries, people is more aware and concerned about the environment, and therefore fashion has been a big element in all this pollution and all those things. So any sustainable fashion is coming and it's going to stay, and the big houses are already working on that. And I know that Louis Vuitton is working on that, and I'm pretty sure that Puig is working on that. How long is it going to take for them? It's kind of like electric cars. You know, we hear about Tesla and all that, but all the big manufacturing automakers already have the electrical cars. They're not thrown into the market because still the market is not ready 100% for those. So they will with the sustainable fashion. I think it's happening, and it's going to happen in the same way. You know? Since the luxury houses, you know, it's going to be a little more complicated, especially because you have the Chinese. Well, now they're going to have to make some adjustments because with the coronavirus thing, the Chinese are not traveling, and since they're not traveling, I think that probably about 40% of the business today is not with Chinese for the luxury market in the fashion and accessories. So I'm sure you're going to have those people that know numbers and all that. They're already making adjustments to the budgets for 2020 and 21.
Interesting. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Do we have any additional questions before I closed out the Q&A? I think we're good. Okay. Julio, thank you. It's been such a pleasure to have you. I appreciate you sharing stories from, you know, Paco Rabanne blessing your child. I'm just still like reeling from that. I was like, I can't believe you got a note from Paco Rabanne. But then, you know, just, you know, those experiences in business and, you know, how you're, diversifying the product and, you know, really kind of defining yourself as a business versus, you know, a hobbyist, really, you know, kind of, you know, we love everybody and we, you know, all creatives, but, you know, when we're talking business and things that can grow and scale over time, you know, I appreciate you kind of making those delineations. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So I'll just say a few words in closing. This is something that we do once a month. This is our first one of the year, but you can come back and see us the last Friday of next month. We'll be talking with Sheila Hawkins Buckglue of Showroom 808 and Sheila Hawkins Buckglue Jewelry. So we may be having an additional guest alongside of her, but we'll be talking a little bit more about that aspect in the accessories business. We also wanted to remind you that the Fashion Incubator, we are able to take people on tours of the design lab, and the studio space is still kind of in development. Give you guys an idea about what's to come and what we have available already. So if you're interested in that, you can find one of our team members to be able to help you take a look at some of our new technology. We were created with a interlocal agreement between the City of Austin, Gerber Technology, and Austin Community College. And so that partnership is really what's brought us $13 million worth of product technology, where we utilize PDS software, which is product design, pattern design software for 2D and 3D capabilities, as well as a product lifecycle management program, as well as a cutter, which is a huge machine that you see when you first walk into the door. So we'd love to kind of show you around and what we've got planned. We've got master classes and workshops on all of those pieces of equipment. So if you're interested, you can check us out on our website. Also, if you're interested in joining our mailing list, you can join our mailing list through our website as well, and we'll keep you updated on all of our activities that are going on here at the incubator. So we look forward to seeing you guys in the future, master classes and workshops. The last thing I will say is shortly there's going to be a survey coming out. You guys all seem to be very fashionable in here, part of our industry, so welcome to the family if you're new to us. If not, we are actually going to be sharing a survey that's going out between the City of Austin and the ACC Fashion Incubator, just kind of understanding more about the fashion industry here. We did a survey back in 2013 where we kind of got a good pulse on what's happening with the industry in Austin, and they said, it's a growth industry, we need to support it. So now they want to see how far have we come. You know, it's 2020, we need to kind of check the pulse again and see where everybody is and what do they need. So we would love for you to participate in that. Again, if you join our mailing list, we'll be sharing that survey with you here shortly. So thank you so much, and that concludes Fashion Hour.